Evcol.
The Boy Who Would Save the World by C. Edward Sellner.
I want to see Big Ben and Buckingham Palace and the Tower of London. I read about that in school. And we're going to the movie tours, right? To see the Harry Potter stuff.
Oh, Timothy, we're only going to be in London for a few days for your daddy's conference. We'll do as much as we can, but I'm afraid you'll have to narrow your choices down just a tad.
Oh, Mum!
Ah, now, Timothy, listen to your mother. We'll come back again sometime soon, so think of the 2 or 3 things you'd like to do the most, and we'll start there, huh?
Why, thank you, Mr. Jonathan Hopkins.
No, thank you, Mrs. Melissa Hopkins.
Don't get all mushy in public. It's gross.
Jonathan.
Dad?
Jonathan.
Mum? Mum? Why? Why?
Thor, Willow, Day, Max. Do you understand? I can't do it anymore. Now it's on you.
Come in. Ah, Dr. McGuinness. Welcome to the Emerson Psychiatric Institute.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Wellington. Believe me, the honour is all mine. I know what a prestigious reputation Emerson has, one you've built. I promise not to let you down.
Enough with buttering me up. You already have the job. Come in. Have a seat. Now, I've taken the liberty of pulling the first case file I want you to start on. It's there on the corner of my desk. Help yourself to a look.
One file, sir. I was under the impression I'd be working with all your juvenile residential patients.
Oh, trust me, son. We plan on getting the full benefit of your child and adolescent critical care and therapy expertise. Don't you worry yourself about that. No, sir. Yeah, but I thought you might like a week or so to settle in, as it were. Get your bearings, attend a couple of staff meetings, review all our policies and procedures. You know, learn the lay of the land.
Ah, well, I understand and appreciate that, sir. And this one case?
Oh, easily our most tragic and challenging case. Timothy Hopkins came here almost 4 years ago, and in all that time, no one has managed to get anywhere with him, myself included. He was a perfectly healthy 8-year-old until a family trip to London, where both his parents were killed in a random street attack. The gunman then killed himself, all right in front of the boy.
So we're talking post-traumatic stress disorder.
On the surface, he certainly fits PTSD. Insomnia, vivid nightmares when he does sleep, social isolation and detachment, emotional apathy, total lack of interest in any activity offered, except for art, which, as you can see, he's obsessed with darker themes.
I see what you mean. These are extremely violent, disturbing in their detail. I mean, the subject matter is more fantasy than reality. Zombies, vampires, monsters. But the amount of detail in the death and destruction, blood, bodies torn apart.
Every drawing he does has similar apocalyptic overtones, and that is virtually the only way he expresses himself. He's become increasingly closed off. He hasn't spoken in almost a year. He's gone into near catatonia. He fights taking his meds every day and refuses any staff or other residents trying to interact.
Any physiological factors?
None as cause or triggers. His lack of sleep, disinterest in food and inactivity is slowly wreaking havoc on his body. He's lost significant weight and most of his muscle tone. He's getting worse, and, well, we're afraid we're going to lose him. Anthony, may I call you Anthony? Anthony, Timothy's family. He's my wife's sister's grandson. We're all he has left. And at our age, well, we just weren't able to deal with him at home. So he's here. But he's still family. Please, give this your best.
Of course, sir. I will.
I'll let you get to it then. Thanks.
The world-famous psychiatrist wants you to fix his broken nephew. No pressure. Come in. Ah, Dr. Fields.
Oh, well. I'm impressed. First full day, and you've unpacked already.
I like to be before I see clients, Dr. Fields. The chaos of settling can be unsettling to patients.
Well, if we're going to be working together, please, call me Kathy. Oh, and please, work on the humour.
All right.
Speaking of patients, today's the day you meet Tim. Any last-minute questions?
I'm glad you asked. I've read through Timothy's full file like 3 times now. I've watched all of his session tapes and I feel like I'm missing something.
Like sleep?
Well, that too. So, most PTSD folks suffer from a loss of control of certain behaviours. At some level, even at the worst, they recognise the pathology of how they think and feel. They know something's wrong, and they feel increasingly desperate to fix it, right?
A fair assessment, but quite a few still don't act on that recognition. At least, not in healthy ways.
Right, but it is there. At the core of the issue, some part of them recognises they've lost control, and they have a desire to regain it. It's what allows them to be receptive to treatment. I don't see any of that in Tim's file or sessions. Even when he did talk to his last therapist, he seemed adamant and determined to maintain his destructive patterns, as if he was in control.
Do you think he blames himself for his parents' death? That he's punishing himself?
It could be, but it doesn't seem like guilt. You know, Tim actually reminds me of a case study I had in my residency. A US Marine who had been captured, interrogated and tortured. His captors taped his interrogations, see. Those tapes were recovered when he was rescued. We watched them to gain insights into what he'd been through, and I can't help but think of him when watching Tim's sessions.
Now wait a second. Are you implying we've been torturing him?
What? Oh, heavens, no, not at all. That Marine was suffering from PTSD, but during those interrogations, his behaviours were less about trauma and more about him being determined not to give up the classified information his captors wanted, right? The telltale signs in his behaviour were all about him trying not to sabotage the mission. As his imprisonment continued, he showed the same signs of increasing withdrawal from the world, closing himself off. Listen, I'm saying Tim acts like he's fighting to keep something secret in, to not break under the very well-intentioned treatment and spill his guts. Dr. Fields, did you all know that Tim's father was videotaping when the shooting occurred?
No, I never knew. I'm pretty sure Dr. Wellington didn't either.
Well, when I couldn't find any reason for Tim's guardedness in the psychiatric records, I decided to dig into the police records. Turns out they had the video camera in evidence and let me have a copy of the video file. Come, check this out. I've set it to a moment before the shooting.
Don't get all mushy in public. It's gross.
That was the father being shot. Now, look. The camera drops, see? So we don't see anything else, but listen closely.
The world will only end on a day when no man expects it. Do you understand? I can't do it anymore. Now it's on you.
That last voice, that was the shooter speaking to Timothy, right before he shot himself.
Oh my God. I knew what had happened, but that... What did the shooter mean by that?
What the shooter may have meant isn't the point. How Tim interpreted it is.
Okay, fair enough, but what was his interpretation?
Timothy, my name is Dr. Anthony McGuinness. I'm your new therapist. We're scheduled to meet now, and I thought you might prefer meeting here in your room where you're more comfortable. Is that okay? I can leave the door open if you like. I know you haven't spoken in some while. I know you're fighting being here. I also know why. I know about your mission to save the world.
How did you know that?
Calm down, Timothy, it's okay. I'm okay with the door shut if you are, but please have a seat, I haven't told anyone else yet, I promise. I wanted to talk to you about it first. I listened to the video, the one your father was recording on that day. I heard what that man said to you just before he killed himself, and I know you've spent every day since focusing on nothing but the world ending, all to keep it from happening. I'm right, aren't I?
Yes. But how did you...
Figure it out? I didn't at first, but once I heard that tape, all the pieces fit. You had a happy, wonderful life and family. And in 20 seconds, someone with a gun ended your entire world when you least expected it. And with his last words, he charged you with stopping that from happening to everyone. Everywhere. That's a pretty heavy burden for a little kid. But it explained everything.
What do you mean?
Why you've shut yourself off from life, from any possible distractions. Why you refuse taking your meds, especially your sleeping meds. After all, the world's at risk when you sleep, unless you dream about the world ending, which explains the nightmares when you finally do sleep. Your art. You aren't violent. You've never raised your hand against someone or shown any sign of desiring to. And yet, your art is graphic because it has to be to keep you focused. Your sessions? You fight anyone reaching out to you because you know if they knew, they would try to talk you out of it. They would endanger the mission.
You're right. They wouldn't understand. You going to try to talk me out of it now?
No, I'm not. I'm just hoping to understand better, to hear your side. The side you haven't told anyone else because they didn't know. But now I do. So, I'm here. I'm wanting to listen.
Can I get up and walk over to the window? I like looking out the window. My folks and I always went to church every Sunday. That Sunday before we left for vacation, the preacher talked about the end of the world. He said that Jesus said that only God knew when it would happen, and it would happen when no one expected it, so we should always be ready. I didn't think much about it because, Bible stuff. But then your world ended, and the man who did it twisted those words. What do you mean, twisted them?
I'm familiar with the Gospels. Jesus did say those things, but he meant that believers should live their faith every day, to be ready for when the time comes, because we don't know when it will. He never meant that we could stop it by thinking about it.
But he said it would be at a time when no one knew. So as long as I know the world will end today, then it can't.
Timothy, just hear me out, okay? First, you were right before. It's Bible stuff. Jesus also said that people living then would still be alive when it happened. And that was over 2,000 years ago. And we're still here. The world is still here. Jesus was wanting people to believe in him, to believe in God, and to live their lives according to his teachings. He never meant...
by threatening the entire world with destruction. Live your life so it won't be as bad for you as it will the next fella. That's weak. The better way is to make sure that it never happens. Because we can stop it from happening by making sure someone always expects it. Maybe someone always has. Maybe that guy and me. Maybe we're part of a long line. I'm right, aren't I?
Well, you certainly believe you're right. And I admit, your logic, given your presuppositions, is rather impeccable.
I didn't understand about half of that. Are you agreeing with me?
I'm saying I get it. I understand why you've been living the way you have. And I hope now that you have someone who gets it. That we can talk more about it in the days to come. Would that be okay?
I guess so.
Amazing. I'm more astounded every time I hear that first session of yours, Anthony. The breakthrough you made on day one and in the weeks since. You've truly put me to shame.
It was just luck and circumstances, sir. Really. None of you had the full picture or any reason to think...
No, we absolutely should have requisitioned that tape. If nothing else, to compare his memory of the event with the facts. I just didn't. Mostly because I didn't think I could handle seeing my niece. But yes, he never mentioned the shooter's final words. Never gave us a clue.
Because it would endanger what he sees as a sacred mission.
And his openness and trust in you now?
Because I already knew, and I've promised him I'm trying to understand it, not stop it.
But the ultimate goal is to convince him to stop with this obsession, right?
Absolutely. That's why over the last couple of weeks I've built his trust, let him think I take this mission seriously, all in order to use his same crux of logic against him and hopefully break the cycle. That's the purpose of the secret outing plan tomorrow, that I'm hoping you'll join me for, Dr. Fields.
A carnival? This is your plan?
Could you give us a minute, Dr. Fields? Just hang there while we walk up a ways, huh? Timothy, trust me, okay? Listen to me now. You know I understand, right? I get it. But here's the thing. Since I get it, I'm on your team. So today, just for today, I know the world will end. I know it deep down in my heart, and it's all I'm going to think about today. I'm not going on any rides. I'm not playing any games. I'm just going to think about the world ending. So it won't.
You mean?
Yes. I'll shoulder the burden for a day. So you don't have to.
So I can do...
anything you want. Here's a ticket card. You can scan it any ride, any game. It's got £50 on it, so sky's the limit. Just stay with us, okay?
Thank you. Oh, thank you. Oh, God. Let's go.
Wow. Oh, wow. Look at you. Oh, I think this kid's going to stay on that roller coaster all day.
Well, I am utterly astounded. I can't believe this worked. The way his face lit up when you promised to take over for a day. You know, it was a total transformation. Oh, wow. It's a miracle, really.
No, just good psychology. Children have powerful imaginations. They can easily envision all sorts of impossible things, from flying reindeer to egg-laying rabbits. So, of course, a child hit with the kind of trauma Tim was, losing his whole world, losing all control over his life. He fixated on a fantasy that gave him ultimate control, responsibility for the entire world. This is phase 1 of my recovery plan for him, to break the cycle. I give him today. When we get back tonight, I plan to tell him I will also take the weekend. I've got nothing planned, so he can have the weekend back at the hospital to meet with Wellington. You spend time with his peers, socialise. Then Monday, I let him know I didn't give it a second thought. And look, nothing happened. I know, don't give me that look. I realise I run a good chance of breaking his trust in me. He might not be able to get past that. But the wall will have been broken. He will have tasted a normal life. He will see things can be different, and this sacred trust he has isn't what he thought it was. Even if he doesn't ever speak to me again, he'll have you, Dr. Wellington. He will recover. This is the fastest way to turn that corner.
So, you mean you haven't been thinking about the world ending?
Of course not. Actually, I've been thinking about working up the courage to ask you out for dinner.
Oh.
Wow! That roller coaster is amazing! I'm going to go on it right after we eat. This is the best day I've ever had since... You're still thinking about it, right? The mission?
Of course. I promised, didn't I? Dr. Fields, did you see that?
That bright light in the sky. I can't see. What is it?
Oh my God. No, it can't be.
You lied.
This was an Evcol Entertainment Clockwork Digital Studios original production, a part of the On Another Wavelength audio anthology series. featuring the voice talents of Samantha Boffin, Michelle Campbell-Jones, Holly Gillanders, Will Harrison-Wallace, and Mitch Howell. Written by C. Edward Sellner. Directed and produced by Simon James Collier. Series created and co-produced by Adam Dechanel. Soundscape design, Zachary Elliott-Hatton.